I'll just give you a little background of myself here. I worked at WPSD TV for 38 years. I've lived in Paducah for about in McCracken County in Paducah for about 43 years. After retiring from the WPSD TV, I moved on to work in the government. I now am the Deputy Judge Executive for McCracken County. And I think probably that gives me a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about what goes on in the county and the city. So I'm looking forward to bringing a little bit of that knowledge from the county over to the city and see if we can't get both on the same page.
Ms. Kaler.
My name is Gail Kaler, and I'm Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Paducah. I've been a City Commissioner for 6 years. I've been a business owner in Paducah for 42 years. I've worked in the city for 47 years. I've done one thing all my life. I've been a hairdresser and a business owner. So I think that gives me a great stake in this community. I know what it's like to make payroll. I know what it's like to have employees to work for you. I know what it's like to pay the bills. That will all help with the decisions that I will make as mayor. So that's basically what I'm about.
Mr. Ringstaff.
Thank you, Bill. My name is Charles Ringstaff. I'm a Paducah resident. I was born in Paducah 27 years ago. As far as I know, I'm the youngest candidate to ever run for mayor of Paducah. I went to Paducah Tillman High School, as so many of us have, and I went to the University of Louisville, where I studied political science with a concentration in law and public policy. And I also studied economy. That's where I developed my my thinking processes of critical thought and extreme analysis of a problem through cost-benefit analysis. I worked at UPS Worldport through the Metropolitan College program, where I actually worked graveyard shift to actually pay for my college education. And I hope to bring what I've learned in college and as an intern for the House of Representatives in Frankfort to my home city of Paducah.
Thank you. The first question is probably pretty predictable. One of the major issues facing the city and county residents in the fall is the referendum on merging city and county governments and forming a new government. Will you vote yes, or will you vote no, and why? Mr. Ringstaff, you're first.
Thank you. The question of merger is a fantastically complicated issue. When I've looked at a merger of government, synthesizing the two governments, what they're attempting to do is capitalize on the synergies that each government can provide the other, basically through consolidating works departments. I've looked at the preliminary proposal, but I have not seen the final result, and it seems that the only efficiencies that we're attempting to capture are through attrition. So basically what this means is the only efficiencies that we're going to gain are through eventually losing people. We don't intend to consolidate any of our programs. From what I've seen, at first we only intend to get rid of people through attrition. So it brings this complicated scenario of where we only have, we're only firing people and putting more people to the unemployment line. So what I've got right now in my mind, I couldn't vote yes for it.
Thank you. Mr. Harness.
You know, the task force, we developed that 2 years ago. And we've had some very, very smart people on that task force to study this and to come up with a solution for the merger. And the way I feel about it right now is they really didn't come up and solve the problems that we needed to be solved in that project. So I think it's a good thing that we put it on the ballot. I think they did the right thing because I feel like the citizens of McCracken County and the city of Paducah should make that decision. And November the 7th, they probably will vote and make that decision.
And you'll vote no?
I'm really undecided about it right now. I think I'm going to have to look at it more and take a little more time with the study. I think it's up to the citizens though to make that decision, not politicians.
Ms. Kaler.
Well, actually, I've already voted for it. 2.5 years ago, the City Commission voted to, yes, for a charter county government plan. We voted for that committee to be formed and to work on this plan. So, you know, all of us voted for it, so I guess you could basically say we were all for it at that time. Now, will I go into the booth and vote for it? Yes, I will. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I think we have a great opportunity to create a better community. Will it be perfect? No. Will it require hard work? Yes. Will it be exciting? Absolutely. And if it does pass, I will only be mayor for 1 year. And that's okay, because I can be part of creating something wonderful here in this community.
Thank you. Second question, Mr. Harness, you have the first, you answer it first. Paducah has a city manager form of government in which the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day decisions are made by a hired city manager. As mayor, how active of a role will you play in the day-to-day operations and influencing decisions such as hiring personnel?
First of all, Bill, I feel like the city manager is the operations. He runs the operations of the city. I think the mayor and the commissioner set the policies and the direction that they want the boat to go. They steer that boat. But when it comes time to make those decisions in the departments, I feel like the city manager needs to make those decisions. Now, if he don't make the right decisions, or it needs to come back to the commission. I think the commission and the mayor needs to make the decisions on what happens in this city.
Ms. Kaler.
What was the question?
The question was, Paducah has a city manager form of government in which the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day decisions are made by the city manager. As mayor, how active a role would you play in the day-to-day operations and influencing decisions such as hiring personnel?
I don't believe in macromanaging. We do have a city manager form of government. He does all the day-to-day running of the city. The city commissioners and the mayor set the policy, and that's the true form of a city manager form of government.
Mr. Ringstaff.
To answer your question quite bluntly, none. It is beyond the role of politics to, in this situation, as outlined by KRS 83.150, for us as city commissioners and as a mayor to attempt to influence the hiring and firing of individuals in this city. It is my hope that the manager makes the best decisions for the city, and I'd put a lot of faith in the current city manager to do that.
Thank you. Next question, Ms. Kaler, you answer first. Several years ago, the City Commission increased the payroll tax from 1.5% to 2% and said it was temporary. The decision was later made to make it permanent. Will you advocate reducing the tax? If yes, how would you make up for the lost revenue? Ms. Kaler.
At this time, we cannot reduce that tax because the large majority of that tax was set aside for economic development, and we've done things with that money that has been supported by many people in the community, with our community scholarships, with our Murray State, with so many things that we partner with the county on. Could we in the future, if the economics changes, maybe, but as of right now, we cannot.
Mr. Ringstaff.
I'm not so solid with the idea of either repealing or keeping it in place. I'm more of a fan of empirical data, things that prove themselves over and over again. And I can't help but think if the utility is there by instituting this tax and keeping it on there, that as long as we spend the dollar and get the dollar benefit or more, we're coming out ahead. But if we're not doing that, then we need to repeal the tax and cut our spending. But they're contingent.
Thank you. Mr. Harness?
Right now, the way I look at it, everything's on the table, including the payroll tax. I don't think at this time we could probably just stop it and go back to the 1%. But that don't mean that we couldn't cut that payroll tax some to help some of the small businesses and that's struggling right now and trying to survive.
So are you in favor of cutting it back or not?
Like I said, I think down the road we really need to look at it close.
Thank you. Question 3, Mr. Kaler, you get this question first. The city and county play a major role in funding local economic development efforts and Entree Paducah. Do you think those efforts have been successful in the past? Has the money been a good investment? And as mayor, would you support continued funding of those efforts? If not, how do you think economic development should be funded in Paducah and McCracken County?
I think the partnerships that we've had as a city and county have been very successful. We have the solid figures to show that. We have businesses here now that have been supported by those cooperative dollars. How could we do it without the city and county funding those initiatives? We would have to have individual business owners step up to the plate to put that money out for economic development, and I think we have that already. We have corporations that do help fund those. So it's more than just city and county. It's cooperations with everyone here in the community to make those things work.
Thank you. Mr. Ringstaff?
Can you repeat that question one more time? I want to make sure I understand
The
it.
city and county play a major role in funding local economic development efforts and Entree Paducah. Do you think that effort has been successful? Has the money been well spent? And as mayor, would you support funding of that effort? If not, how should economic efforts be funded in Paducah and McCracken County?
Okay. From what I get to see, I do see Entree Paducah as a success and the economic development programs being a success. But it's slow, in my mind. And maybe we shouldn't be thinking about so much more as should we not give them dollars or give them more dollars. It should be what opportunities can we capitalize upon maximizing our investments. And it's those types of things that we should look into. I continue to support any program that proves itself to be a success and actually does some good in our community and to the taxpayers and to the voting public. If it's not a success, then it's a simple decision to pull funding.
Thank you. Mr. Harness?
I think we need to continue our partnership with all agencies. I think that city and county should be involved in the GPEDC, Entree Paducah, any agency that's trying to bring business and jobs to this community.
Thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Ringstaff. Should the city continue to be a partner in the ownership of the convention and expo centers, and should city tax monies continue to be used to help funding those facilities? If you don't support it, continued government funding, how should the facility become financially stable?
Okay, that's a very delicate issue, and as for me as a person, I find myself held to a high degree of philosophy and critical thought. In that sense, I can't help but fall back on the teachings of John Locke, and looking at this built up is a question of supply and demand. So is there a demand for this center? Do we have the demand in place to support our continuing investment in it? I believe it was Lennis that brought up a very fantastic point about rebranding it slightly or thinking of some out-of-the-box ways to actually do something with it. Other than just a convention center.
Thank you. Mr. Harness?
I think the convention center is very important to the city of Paducah. I feel like the county and city should support it. It belongs to us. We need to take care of it. I think the one thing that we need more than anything is probably get a hotel in here for a week and let the hotel run that convention center. As we know, everybody in here knows that convention centers are lucky if they even get close to breaking even. But with a hotel here, at least the hotel will run the convention center and take care of the project.
Thank you. Ms. Kaler?
Absolutely. I think, we already have a big bond issue on it. City and county has to pay that bond issue on the convention center. So we're already committed to it. We need to continue along that line. And absolutely, when we get that hotel down there, it will make a huge difference in the money that the city and county will have to put into that facility.
Thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Harness first. What would you do to improve relations between the city and county? There seems to have been a lot of disagreements lately over pauper burials, Entre Paducah, a lot of debate over funding of the convention center and other issues. What would you do to help improve the city and county relations? Also, some lawsuits filed by the city against the county.
I think we've only had one lawsuit. I think that was on the merger. I'm sorry, not the merger, but out on Snyman Road, annexation. But I think probably the KRS on the animal shelters and stuff like that says that the county should pay for that. If the city has been paying for it for a good while, but if they don't want to pay for it, then I think that's a responsibility of the county.
So what would you do to help improve relations, or how do you think the relations have been?
I don't think the city and county has bad relationships right now. I think we work fairly well together. I think the only time you hear that we're having a problem is when it's something that the paper or the radio or somebody like that gets involved in. But as far as I know, the city and county are doing well together. I think we work well together.
Ms. Kaler?
Bad relationships between the city and the county sell newspapers. So, I mean, to me, that's what it's all about. We actually do come to terms with different issues that come up. We don't always see eye to eye, but that's with anything. And we have to work those issues out. And, I think what makes me a good candidate for mayor is that the business that I've been in all my life, I've worked with employees, I've had to mediate, I've had to mentor people, I've had to communicate, and those skills are all so important when it comes to relationships between the two governments. But if we vote in the fall to merge, that'll take care of all of it, won't it?
Thank you. The next segment will be the candidates asking each other questions, and we'll probably have time for 2 or 3 questions. Mr. Ringstaff, your first question is for Mr. Harness.
I don't want to be.
You can look at your notes on that.
Okay. Yeah, I can look at my
fine.
notes on this
Yeah.
one. Okay. My question to you, Mr. Harness, is: can you explain in detail the role of the mayor as outlined by the Kentucky Revised Statutes?
The mayor is the chief operating officer for the commission. He runs the commission meetings. He kind of steers the ship for the commission, and on a day-to-day basis, he discusses things and talks with the city manager.
You're going to have to talk a little bit. Answer
Okay,
your
I'm
question
sorry.
again. People didn't hear that.
The mayor he works with the city manager on a daily basis. He is kind of the steer of the boat. He's the one that oversees the policy making and city manager, and he works with the city manager.
Rebuttal? Any comment? 1 minute.
That is a satisfactory answer. My point in introducing this question is that I know I've mentioned it before, but 83A.150 clearly outlines the city manager plan, in which it invests most executive authority in the city manager. The point that I'm trying to get across is that I think it's the prerogative of the executive should be to attempt to court potential economic developers and whatnot. And I would also like to apologize. I'm not trying to call anyone out. I feel that I feel I'm in a bit of a predicament on that, so Doug, I had no intention to prove to you.
Mr. Harness, question for Ms. Kaler.
I think probably my question for Ms. Kaler is I'd like for her to tell me how she's involved in the poverty task force. I'd like to see more of it in the city of Paducah, and I was wondering if you're involved.
Speaking to your microphone. Go ahead. I think I heard it, but go on. Are you done?
I'm done.
Yeah, Ms. Kaler?
No, I am not a member of the Poverty Task Force. Is that your question?
Yeah. And are you involved in poverty?
I
of-
grew up.
of
I
Paducah?
grew up in poverty. No, I did. I really did.
Well, I did
So-
too, but we're
I
talking
mean-
about the city of Paducah now. We're not talking about Livingston County.
I am involved in United Way. I have made efforts to reach out to the different people involved in the Poverty Task Force
Yeah.
to familiarize myself with what's going on, with the efforts that they're making. The gentleman that spoke at the Power and Partnership Breakfast on Thursday, I thought gave a lot of insight into things that we can do here in the community to alleviate some of the poverty that we have. Oscar Cross Boys and Girls Club is another great effort that we're doing here in the community to alleviate poverty. So, yes, that's something that the city has to work on, and the county as well.
Mr. Harness, 1 minute for rebuttal or comment.
Well, I just think that's a pretty big problem we have here in Paducah, and I think that we all need to really pay attention to the poverty level here. And I know the task force that I was on has really worked hard with that, and it's come a long ways. And I'd like to see everybody get involved in it, city and county. And right now it's on a good road, and I'd like to see it stay there.
Ms. Kaler, a question for Mr. Ringstaff.
I guess the question that we get asked a lot, Mr. Ringstaff, is why do you want to be mayor?
For me, it was a long, drawn-out process. It echoes from my childhood up until now, that when you see a need for something, for a role that you know you can fulfill, you're reluctant sometimes to stand up. And one of my literature professors in college, back when I was younger, posed a question to me that has haunted me my entire life. And I've said it before and I'll say it again: if not you, then who? If I don't stand up for what I believe in and for the people I believe in, then who is? And that's why I'm running.
Ms. Kaler, a minute to comment or rebut?
No.
You have a minute to comment. You have any comment of your own, Ms. Kaler?
No.
Okay. Okay, next, Mr. Harness, a question for Mr. Ringstaff.
I guess, Charlie, I don't want to attack you either, but I guess.
And we won't let you. We won't let you.
No, I guess I need to know your experience in the government. I guess I need to know where you're headed and how you gonna run the city.
Well, I'm not going to run the city. It's as simple as that. My job, if elected mayor, almost exclusively is to attempt to court economic developers and to try to get stimulus into the area. Other than that, it is running a weekly meeting. If I'm not mistaken, Robert's Rules of Order are in effect, of which I was a parliamentarian in my general fraternity. I also studied Mason's Rules of Order, or Mason's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure, while I worked as an intern in the Kentucky House of Representatives. And as far as where I'm going, wherever I can do the most good. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for any ulterior motive than to do good for people.
Mr. Harness, comment or rebuttal? Okay, Ms. Kaler, a question for Mr. Harness.
Mr. Harness, you've never been elected to an office. You've never had to make decisions and take the heat for it. You've functioned more as administrative assistant to the county judge. What kind of skills do you have that would make you a good mayor?
Well, like I said, when I first started, I worked for 38 years for a TV station here locally in Paducah, a local TV station, and 20 of those years, or 15 to 20 of those years, I was a manager on a daily basis with the quick breaking, hard running news stories, making decisions, after that, I went to work for the county as deputy judge executive, and let me tell you, Judge Newberry don't make all the decisions. He allows me to make a lot of the decisions, and we sit down and we talk about those decisions, and he has a final word on it. But I make daily decisions. I think you know. I work with your city manager almost daily, or at least 2 or 3 times a week on projects that we're doing every day. Outside of that, it's a daily job. It's a daily reporting to the judge.
Thank you. Try to go to a second round, but if you decide you don't want to ask other candidates questions, we'll go back to me asking questions. Ms. Kaler, you have another question for Mr. Ringstaff?
No.
Any of you have questions for any other candidates?
I believe I've
Go ahead, Mr. Ringstaff, if you do.
couple I'll look over. I believe I have a few questions.
Okay, go ahead. Direct them to, I'll let you direct them to whomever you want.
Ms. Kaler, what ideas do you have to expand on the economic development of Paducah as far as proposing them to the citizenry and the city planner or city manager?
Speaking to the microphone, so
Sorry,
we're hearing, I'm sorry.
What I asked Ms. Kaler what plan she has for the economic development of Paducah in relations to presenting them to the Chamber of Commerce and the city manager.
Ms. Kaler?
Economic development is a broad issue. We have many partners in that work together in our community, and that's what makes it work well. Now, I think where the mayor can be very helpful is when people bring ideas to the mayor that can then be presented to their partners such as GPEDC, Chamber, Entre Paducah, city manager, and county judge. But as far as what the mayor can do for economic development is be supportive of those and encourage the job productions here in the community.
Thank you. Any comment or rebuttal?
No rebuttal, that is satisfactory.
Mr. Harness, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go back to I'll ask questions. Are there any current city services such as refuse collection, tax collection, or inspection that you believe should be outsourced as a means of reducing costs? And Mr. Harness, you go first.
I really don't. I think we need to kind of streamline our inspection department. I'm not sure that we shouldn't maybe merge some of our departments. We've already got some of them merged. The jail basically is merged, the animal control is merged, and I kind of feel like the building and electrical could be merged. And I think it would work better. On the under the codes that we have now, they're all state and federal codes. And I think probably it'd be real easy to do that because we all work from the same book, from the same code book. And city counties, I really feel like that would make us a stronger community as far as bringing contractors and building in our city.
Ms. Kaler?
I think right now the city works exceptionally well. We've had some departments that have merged, engineering and public works, and I'll have to say that Rick Murphy does an outstanding job in that position. Rick is a real budget hawk, and so he's all about saving money for the city. He's done a great deal to save us money. We've combined the fire department right now on a planning level with the inspection The city manager has not brought that before the commission yet, and we're still looking at that to see if that's going to be effective or not. But I think the more things that we can put together in the city to bring about economic economy and efficiency is an important thing to do.
Thank you. Mr. Ringstaff?
I would like to say that from what I perceived from the question, there was a question about privatizing possibly utilities.
Right, do you support any privatization?
I feel that in a lot of instances, even though I am a staunch capitalist, that it is a dangerous stance to start privatizing some things, because sometimes there are things in this world that the free market can't do for itself efficiently, and I believe that is exclusively the role of government. As far as capturing the synergies between departments, I believe that a lot of departments do a good job, or like the Joint Sewer Agency. They capture as many synergies as they can. We should always and vigilantly be looking for opportunities to enhance our efficiency, and it's one of the concepts that I think I want to resonate with the voters, is efficiency.
Thank you. Ms. Kaler, you get this question first. Mm-hmm. Did the city make the right decision in purchasing the land for the sports complex, since the county did not support that initially? Was that the right decision? And do you think that will move forward? And if so, how will it move forward?
I guess, was that the right decision? It would depend on which side of the fence you're standing on.
Which one are you on?
I voted for it. We all voted for it. At the time we voted for that, we did think it was the right decision. And that's what you have to do as an elected official. You have to take the information you have at that time and make that decision. Shortly after we made that decision and the independent group had promised to raise the $1 million, the economy did go south. They've had a difficult time raising those funds. And we have asked them to continue in that effort. We've told them that they can lower that expectation a little bit and that we could phase the field in. Looking at it, hindsight as I am now after that initial decision, I would say that we need to sell the property and move on.
Mr. Ringstaff?
I'm with Ms. Kaler on this one. Hindsight is 20/20, and had more data been available, maybe a better decision could have been made. But the decision that was made is made, and the decision we need to make now is where to go from here. And if we collectively decide as a course of action that we want to keep the land in question, we should keep it if we think we can do what we want with it. But beyond that, sell it.
Mr. Harness?
I think, Bill, there was a study taken, and I think we had probably 5 or 6 locations. Probably, truth be known, that was probably the worst location we could have picked. One thing, it was overpriced and we spent too much money for it, or the city spent too much money for it. And I think, Bill, it was in the wrong place. I don't think it was in the right place. I think we got plenty of soccer fields and playing fields in the city and the county already. I don't know why we'd, especially with the economy the way it is, I just don't think it's a good time to spend that money. And I agree with Ms. Kaler that we do need to get rid of the property, or the city needs to get rid of the property.
We have about 4 minutes left. Each of you name 2 things that the city can do to help keep young people in Paducah other than job creation. And Mr. Ringstaff, you're first.
Thank you for giving me that question. As a young person, I find that what is lacking are things to do. And then as I'm transitioning into an adult, there's not enough to keep me around. Besides my intense love for the family that I have here and for what I have here. And it's just an overwhelming feeling that I've talked to about many of my friends that have went to the University of Louisville with me. The opportunity cost of staying is tremendous. And, you know, the entertainment value as children isn't here, and the job power, and I hate to say that, but the job power isn't here, and I know that's a direct quandary to the question, but that's really what needs to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Harness?
I think we're already doing it. I think we just approved Murray State moving into Paducah. I think you got to look at your education programs and educate people and get the jobs in here that the schools are teaching. I just feel like education's the way you get them and keep them.
Ms. Kaler?
I think quality of life is one of the main things that young couples, young families look at when they're moving into a community. You know, do we have the greenway trails? Do we have the bike paths, the safe bike paths? Do we have quality family things for people to do here in this community? And I think we certainly do. We have all those things to attract the youth here. Now, I hear all the time, like Charles talked about, that there's not enough to do. But, you know, on any given week, there's so many things going on in Paducah, I can't get around to it all. And most of it revolves around really fun, inexpensive things to do that benefits a charity.
Thank you. Well, now I'll give each candidate up to 1 minute for a closing remark. Ms. Kaler, you're first.
I would just like to say that I would like to have the opportunity to serve the citizens of Paducah as their mayor. You know, I'm one of those people that's never been happy with things the way they are. I think they can always be better. And even though we have a great community here, it can be better. It can be a lot better. And I think we have an opportunity this year to have new people involved on the commission. We've got 2 openings on the commission. We've got a great opportunity for new ideas. And it will be exciting. And the first thing I'd like to do when I'm mayor is have a strategic planning session with all the new folks on the commission and let us decide, is the path that we have selected with our strategic plan the one that we want to stay with.
Thank you. Mr. Ringstaff?
I would like to first start off by congratulating the citizens of Paducah for having the opportunity to see an election cycle of this caliber. The water's being changed, so to speak, and a lot of people with a lot of ideas are chomping at the bit to do something for the community. And I think that speaks volumes about the people of Paducah and about the people attempting to fill these spots. And I thank every one of them. I would also like to say and echo Ms. Kaler's Strategic Planning Commission that the commission needs to come up with a cohesive vision, loose or moderately cohesive, I guess, if such a thing exists, and try to continue in that direction towards a brighter future for Paducah.
Thank you. Mr. Harness?
I'd like to see protect our people of this community. I'd like to see us have a stronger police force. I think we got a really strong police force right now, but I'd like to see even a stronger one. I think we have a great fire department, and I think safety is a big issue. I think when people come to this city, one of the first things they look at is this a safe city to live in? And when I become mayor, I'll be working closely with those agencies.
Again, on behalf of the Paducah Area Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank you for participating. It's only through education and accessibility that the voters can learn about the candidates and their views. I remind voters that on May 22nd, you'll reduce the field of 4 candidates to 2 who will run in the November 6th election. I think somebody up there mentioned it's on the 7th, but you'll be a little late if you get there at the 7th. And again, I want to thank you for participating, and let's give them all a hand.